to Cricket World Radio.
And this is Cricket World Around the World. Welcome to Cricket World Around the World. I'm John Pennington. I'm joined by Jim White. Hello, Jim.
Hello, John.
Now, we're going to talk about England-India because, well, everybody else is talking about it. A little bit about Zimbabwe, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Australia as well. We've got the ICC show coming up as well. Andy Flower and Shandre Fritz featuring on this week's show. But, this is pretty good for England fans at the moment, Jim. England, #1 test side in the world for the first time since the rankings really began.
Absolutely, John. I suppose as a cricket fan, the disappointing thing is this is like the series that was billed as being the battle of English bowlers and Indian batsmen, and unfortunately, it hasn't materialised. If it had been any other, probably poorer test playing nation, we might have said, well, kick him out of world cricket. It's a real shame. India just haven't come to the party. Yes, don't get me wrong, England have played very well, and I think it's one of those times where one side's playing very well and the other side's not playing very well, and as a result, the gap has just been huge. India really have not got off the mark in this. I think they've not even got past 300 in one of their innings yet. I think Asad Cook managed that nearly on his own. So it just goes to show there is at the moment a big gulf between the sides, and it's just a shame for the fans that were just really on both sides, to be fair, really keen to see really what Test cricket was all about, particularly after a great Ashes series for England and India having been so strong in world cricket for so long.
And it's interesting to look at the way that England are dominating at the moment. I think it's something like 11 out of the last 19 wins have been by innings. So it's not like they're scraping their way to the top. They are beating teams, beating them comfortably.
They are, I think. Yeah, and I think a lot of that goes down to Strauss and Flower's planning. When they looked at this and had meetings, we're going to do the following. And I think you can see a little element of that when they won the Ashes series. The last test wasn't a case of foot off the gas, we can celebrate. No, let's carry on and push on with this because it's all part of the bigger picture, if you like. But yes, big margins, should we say, of winning, and it's something that hasn't happened for many years. England have always been on the other end of it, and as an English supporter, you talk to other fans and invariably been copying it for so long, and it's a complete turnaround now. It's almost not being liked because you're winning. Well, hey, who cares?
Yes, and it's something I was talking to with Chetan. If you've been listening to our England's Indian Summers podcast, you can find those on the homepage of cricketworld.com. For me, it's been a progression. Obviously, England won the World 2020, then they set their sights on the Ashes, then they set their sights on this series with India, getting to #1. Of course, next summer it's South Africa. That could be 1 against 2 once again, and they'll be wanting to win that and really to lay down a marker as well. I mean, we're looking quite far ahead, but it's certainly something that I think you've touched on there. It's not just, yes, we got to #1, we won that game, we'll rest on our laurels, I should say. We're going to go on and I think they want to dominate in a way that Australia and the West Indies have in the past.
Yeah, and it may well be just a circle of life, if you like. Teams and eras come and go. Obviously many years ago we'd all been sort of keeping our eye on this Fire in Babylon thing. A lot of people who were watching it saying, well, didn't understand what it was all about, what it took for a team to become a great team. And the answer is 4, if not 6, very fast bowlers. So bowling teams have always done very well. Yes, you can get runs, and again, a key issue here is taking wickets, taking 20 wickets to win Test matches. And I think again that's where England really have excelled. Lot of emphasis was put on Swan. Hasn't really been needed for this one.
Hasn't had to do much, has he?
Well, no, he hasn't. And allegedly pitches being not prepared, if you like, against him. But I think, his impact hasn't been needed. But then again, it was always there if required. I'm just going back to you saying about South Africa. I think looking back, England dropped to 5th in the rankings because they played South Africa and lost. And that's kind of where it probably hit home. We need to be better. And South African cricket is always very, very hard cricket. It will be nothing like this Indian series at all because England have not turned up. South Africa always turn up, and they'll always have a lot of people who are going to fight tooth and nail. And I think a real test will be winning away, or even just playing South Africa anywhere is going to be a real test. And let's see how they get on with those. Before
that, of course, they tour India as well, and that is also going to be an absolutely massive test. Now, what about the strength in depth? Because for me, it's highlighted that England have it, and India are desperately short of it.
Yeah, I mean, if you were to defend India in this sense, a touring team always has less resources. England have got 18 counties with however many pros to call on. Notably, Graham Mungin's sort of back in the squad, having had a couple of years out with very unfortunate back injuries. Another bowler with injuries. That's a story for another day, that one there. But, there are people like, Finn, got injured, unlike Tremlett, got injured. Will they get back in? Because Bresnan's come in and just played exactly the role you want to play with the bat, 90-odd he got as well. So England now bat a long way down, and the balance of the team is really, really good, and it allows England to play more aggressive cricket because they know, well, we can keep going on it because we know we've got the guys coming in who can swing a bat Broads, 100 of course, previously. So there's a lot of depth there. And just on the verges, you've got Taylor and Bairstow. Taylor consecutive hundreds in the Sri Lanka England A game, should I say. And even people like Chris Wokes, recently taken 7 wickets, in his most recent county game. So there's a lot of strength and depth there, and you're absolutely right, India at the moment don't have it. Well, they haven't brought it with them on the plane, so they're going to struggle. I wonder if it's a changing of the guard. I think that the effects of the IPL may now be just starting to show itself, because the cricketers look disinterested, they look exhausted. The only thing that may make them smile, dare I say it, is to think, well, it's okay, I've got the IPL and my bank balance is looking all right, because cricket has changed. Cricket has changed from being a hobby and a fun game to being a profession, and once that changes the emphasis, outlooks change.
There's a discussion for another day. Let's move on to some cricketers who certainly aren't disinterested and unenthusiastic. Some fantastic scenes in Harare this week where Zimbabwe beat Bangladesh. They only just beat them in the third ODI. Mushfiqur in brilliant century he was caught out going for the winning hit, so Zimbabwe won it by 5 runs. They won the test match between the two teams. They won the first 2 one-day internationals very convincingly, and they held their nerve to win that game as well. Really good for me to see Zimbabwe back looking strong and winning games of cricket again.
Again, it's if you like, the African continent of cricket, isn't it? It's a hard school out there, and great to see, I agree, them back in the fold, and I think they're going to make waves. I think they're going to surprise, particularly in the shorter version. I think one-day cricket, they have a lot of ability, and a lot of players may not be very well known at the moment, but sure will be coming up soon. Bangladesh, tick them off, right, who's next? And I think they'll be up for taking a few more scalps along the way.
And another series going on at the moment, Sri Lanka against Australia. Sri Lanka, of course, won the 2020s 2-0. Then Australia surged into a 2-0 lead in the ODI. Sri Lanka hit back to win by 78 runs. Lassie Malinga took 5 for 28. He's now the leading wicket taker in ODIs this year. And it's an interesting one, because I still feel Sri Lanka almost in a similar situation to India, when the likes of Mahela Javadina, Kumar Sangakkara, Tilaka Dilshan go. Have they got the strength and depth, and are they going the right way about grooming their youngsters? So that's another interesting question.
It is. It also makes you wonder which of the teams turned up to play in England, because, again, this level of cricket is the Sri Lanka that we know. What's happened? Is it because it's warmer climates? Is it because it's not May in England?
They were missing Malinga, of course. He does make a huge difference.
Absolutely. Well, as you just mentioned, leading wicket taking, and it does matter who you have, why he wasn't picked. It's a real shame that he and the others weren't playing in that series against England, because, again, strongly supported. They are a world force, and you're absolutely right. When they get 3 or 4 dropping out of key players, we think back to Australia years ago when the McGraths, Warnes, Gilchrists and Haydens and others retired. Huge gap. They're still recovering. They're not over it yet, and there'll be another 5 years before the next lot come round, I think. And going back to what we said earlier about the whole cycles of who becomes dominant over a period of time. Rarely do you get 2 teams, for whatever reasons, that are both vying for number 1 over a 10-year period. It's usually the back end of one is the start of another, and you just keep seeing this between the stronger test nations. They need to look at their own domestic setup. How do you produce the next group of test quality cricketers? How do you get them up to that level? Do you play them early and let them have an experience of it, or do you groom them and bring them in when they're about 34 and have got 15,000 runs under the belt, as they do in Australia? Different horses for courses. Well,
absolutely. And Sri Lanka actually had the chance of going to number 1 in the ICC ODI rankings had they beaten Australia 4, and obviously that's not now going to happen. But thanks for those thoughts, Jim. We're going to move on now to the ICC show. Plenty more news, views, series of ratings, updates and all sorts, including those previously mentioned interviews with Andrew Flower and Shandre Fritz.
Hello and welcome to ICC Cricket World. In today's episode, we talk to the man who destroyed the Indian side in the second innings with the bat and with the ball, Tim Bresnan. We also have a word with Sunil Gavaskar as he looks back at the Trent Bridge Test. And last, we have an exclusive with Sri Lankan all-rounder Angelo Mathews. But as always, we begin the show with all the happenings in the world of cricket. Here's the news. Injuries continue to haunt the Indian team as Harbhajan Singh and Yuvraj Singh have been ruled out of the rest of the England tour. Harbhajan had a grade 1 abdominal muscle strain which limited his role as a bowler in the test match to just 13.4 overs, increasing the workload on India's seam attack. Yuvraj fractured his left index finger on the 4th day at Trent Bridge while facing up to a bouncer from Tim Bresnan, and the injury is expected to take 4 weeks to heal. India have named Virat Kohli and left-arm spinner Pragyan Ojha as the replacements. Meanwhile, ahead of their series against Sri Lanka, Michael Hussey has counselled his team to be prepared for a succession of slow pitches and a spin-laden Sri Lankan bowling attack. Australia's cricketers have played plenty of cricket on the subcontinent lately, but their skills will again be tested by the variety of slow bowling offered up by the home side, which must cope without the speed of Lasith Malinga, who has been ruled out of the T20 matches and is doubtful for the one-day internationals as well. Tilakratne Dilshan, the Sri Lanka captain, was adamant that his team could cover for the loss of Malinga through a combination of youth and the shrewd use of spin bowlers. And UAE managed to turn around a first innings deficit to beat Kenya in the ICC Intercontinental Cup. After conceding a first innings lead, UAE bounced back to score a mammoth 439 for 8 in their second innings thanks to centuries from Saqib Ali, Amjad Javed and Khurram Khan. Needing 434 runs to win the 4-day match, Kenya were bundled out for 167 with only Colin Zubuya putting up some resistance. UAE won the match by 266 runs. So India, who are struggling without their pace spearhead in Zaheer Khan, have now another problem to face in Harbhajan Singh and Yuvraj Singh's absence. England, on the other hand, are facing a problem of plenty. Tim Bresnan walked into the England side as a replacement for injured Chris Tremlett, but his performances in the match were good enough to put English selectors in a dilemma. Here he is talking to Jatin Sapru.
Just some of the days you dream up growing up as a cricketer?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you don't so much think you're going to get, nearly 105 for in a test in one day in a test match. So yeah, it's fantastic.
Nearly 100. I'm sure that would have been the icing on the cake in case you'd gotten to the 3-figure mark.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, first test 100, first test 5 for all in one day would have been spectacular.
Taking on the number one team, a lot was said about the competition between you and Stuart Broad. Is that something that keeps both of you going?
Yeah, I think so. It's definitely hotting up. The competition between us is fantastic. It's fantastic for English cricket. With all the seamers, even the competition for places in our side is such that any one of six people could play and bowl well and do the job.
Is that something which has been told by the support staff, that it's not just that you can be a bowler or a fielder, you've also got to bat, because you've allowed England to bat pretty much as deep as number 10?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that's just the way the cricket in general has gone for the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years. There's very rarely 9-10 jack in the game that just roll over now, and it's probably good for cricket. It means less 5 for us bowlers.
Talking about the conditions, what made you think that first it was good for batting when you were batting and suddenly it turned out to be good for bowling? The short ball tactic, was that planned against the Indians?
It didn't start to be, no, but we identified something that we saw and just thought, let's keep going at this and see what happens, and it paid off for us.
Identified something, is that anyone in particular?
Not in particular. Most of the Indian guys were struggling with it, so we thought, keep bowling them.
You put Chris Tremlett into a bit of a trouble. When he'll be fit, it'll be a tough one for the team management to decide.
Yeah, I mean, that's their job though. It's tough. It's going to be tough for the selectors to make that decision, but it's good for English cricket. The fact that we've got a stable now of seamers and all-rounders that can come in and do the job.
Thanks for talking to us. Enjoy the moment.
No problem. Thank you.
So that was Tim Bresnan, quite happy with his performance in the second test. One man who wasn't so pleased about how India approached the match was former India captain Sunil Gavaskar. Alan Wilkins caught up with him.
Sunny, How good a performance was this by England, or could you say it was a very poor performance by India?
Well, I think it was a combination of both, but you've got to give credit to the England team for the way they came back despite conceding a lead. In fact, the way they came back on the first evening itself, at tea time they were 124 for 8 and looked as if they'd be rolled over for 150 or thereabouts. But Stuart Broad played extraordinarily well along with Graham Swan and added valuable runs. Now, apart from the runs that they added, what it did was it gave the England team the belief, hang on a minute, we just counter-attacked the Indians, and it looked that they were a bit rattled. Yeah. And I think that changed the attitude when they came into bowl as well.
Probably Ian Bell's best Test century, but in the middle of it, Sonny, well, towards the end of it, it'll be remembered for that incident just before tea. What are your thoughts? I know you've got many of them, but on that act of sheer sportsmanship from Mahendra Singh Dhoni?
I think he deserves all the praise because he took a decision in the larger interest of the game of cricket as we know it, as the game of cricket that we love. And I think by doing that, he's also set an example to other captains that wherever possible, if you can uphold the spirit of the game, the animosity that we see in the game, which is unnecessary. And even on the fourth day, when the Indian tail was wagging a bit, some of the chirping that went on was totally unnecessary. England were winning. They didn't have to do some of the things that they had to try and unnerve the batsmen by trying to talk to them. And I think it was a great call by Mahendra Singh Dhoni. He needs all the praise that can be there.
We saw a man of the match performance from Stuart Broad, local boy, plays here at Trent Bridge. He's fast becoming England's best all-rounder, almost filling the boots of Freddie Flintoff, isn't he?
Yes, he is, and also don't forget they've got Tim Bresnan, who's also batted well, scored 90 and took 5 wickets. So yes, England is very, very fortunate to have that kind of talent down at number 7, 8, 9. There's Graham Swan who can come in and bat as well down the order. So England are very, very fortunate to have that much of depth in their batting, because as we saw on the first day, even if there's a collapse 124 for 8, there is always a possibility that these last few batsmen can take them to a decent score.
Day 4 of this Test match, Sonny, which was called Yorkshire Day in Britain, and there was one man who really did make it Yorkshire Day, even though we were in Nottinghamshire, was Tim Bresnan. What a good player.
What a good player. I think he grabbed his opportunity. He got in because Chris Tremlett was injured just before this Test began, and he grabbed his chance with both hands and showed why he should be a permanent member of the team. He can bowl well, he bowls at good pace, and he's got a very good technique batting down the order. 90, he missed out on 100, but both with the bat and ball showed how invaluable he can be to the England team.
Chris Tremlett will probably be fit for Edgbaston, Sonny. Have England got a selection problem here, or is it almost really a comfort zone?
They are in a comfort zone, and I think any selection panel would actually want this kind of a headache where there's problem of plenty rather than scrounging around looking for replacements. So I think it's going to be a tough call for them. They'll probably have a look at what the pitch has got to do. If the pitch has got a little bit of green, they'll say, Mr. Bresnan, thank you very much, but maybe we'll stick to Chris Tremlett because he brings a little more firepower, brings a little more bounce to the team.
But Sonny, what about India? If everything's going right for England, things are going wrong for India. They looked tired. They looked like a side that needed some motivation.
They did indeed. I think on the second evening when England had to come in to play a few overs, they should have really come in charging at them. They did not. I think that sort of was an indication that there is perhaps tired bodies and tired minds, and that's the reason why they then on the third evening they allowed them to score in the last session 187 runs. That's a lot of runs by the tail enders, not by the top order batsmen. It was Pryor and Bresnan who got those runs, and I think that's where the game slipped out of India's hands.
Yeah.
Moving on with the show, Sri Lanka getting ready to face the Aussie challenge at home, and we managed to catch up with Angelo Mathews as he's looking forward to the challenge ahead. Hello and welcome to ICC Cricket World, Angelo. Now you guys had a wonderful World Cup campaign, making it to the finals of the big event. So how did that help you grow as a team?
Yeah, of course. I mean, playing a World Cup is a great experience, and getting into the final, but unfortunately I couldn't play the final, and that was a big loss for me. But yeah, nevertheless, moving on and trying to do my level best.
End of the World Cup saw a new captain leading your side. Tilakratne Dilshan has been a positive batsman and a fielder to the team so far. How is he as a leader?
Yeah, of course. I mean, he's a very positive player and always he goes to bat where he tries to dominate the bowler. And I think he'll be a very good captain.
You're up against a new-look Australian side. Do you think that the Aussies can put up a challenge in front of the Sri Lankan team who have always been strong playing at home?
Yeah, of course. I mean, talking about the Australians, they're always a very formidable team. And I think, we need to play really well to beat them.
The two M's of Sri Lanka, Murli and Malinga, have announced their retirement from the Test squad. So who do you think can fill in their shoes?
Well, talking about Lasith Malinga and Muttai Murli, they are exceptional people, and I think well, we've got talent actually, but no one can replace them. But there are good youngsters coming up, and I think we've got the talent certainly.
You mentioned youngsters. Any specific names that you'd like to mention?
Well, yeah, we've got a few actually. Suranga Lakmal did really well in the England series, and Shaminder Ranga is just joining the team from England. From the A team. So I think they are two young bowlers to watch out.
Being an all-rounder in the team, do you believe that you have to work more on your bowling?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I just returned into bowling, so I'm just getting up there, and I'm hoping to bowl quite a lot in the series.
With new faces in the Aussie bowling lineup and batting looking good for Sri Lanka with the likes of Sankara, Jayawardene Samaravira and Dilshan, do you think Australia can pose a threat to the batting?
Well, I think still we need to focus on our game. And I mean, there's solidity in our team, and I think still performance matters. I think we need to put our heads down and try and focus and try and score runs.
Sri Lankan team now has the blend of youth and experience. How helpful is it for the younger generation to have the seniors around?
Yeah, of course. I mean, gelling up with the senior guys, it helps a lot for the youngsters. And we always turn to the senior guys whenever we need them. So they are willing to help us right throughout. So I think, it's a good nation, and we are gelling up nicely together.
Angelo, my last question to you. Is there any specific goal or a target that you have set for this upcoming series?
Well, it's just that, as I always think, I'm trying to do my very best, and whenever I get the opportunity, I'm trying to maximize it and keep up the performance, try and be consistent with the performance.
Thank you so much, Angelo, for being on the show, and all the best for the series ahead. That was Angelo Mathews looking ahead to that all-important series against Australia. It's time now to check out the up and down movement in the Reliance ICC Player Rankings. In the Reliance ICC Player Rankings for batsmen in Test matches, it's still Jacques Kallis who is at the top of the charts with 883 points. He is followed by Sri Lankan Kumar Sankara with 838 points. India maestro Sachin Tendulkar is at number 3 with 831 points. Jonathan Trott has maintained his number 4 ranking on the table, but close on his heels after a brilliant 100 in the second test is teammate Ian Bell with 776 points. Trailing him by just 1 point is the West Indian Shiv Naren Chandrapal. Thilan Samaravira would be looking to improve his rankings as he is gearing up for the series against Australia at number 7. AB de Villiers is at number 8 with 760 points. Breathing down his neck is VVS Lakshman with 759 points. As the whole of India awaits his return, Virender Sehwag somehow still manages to hold on to the number 10 spot. In the Reliance ICC Player Rankings for bowlers, South African Dale Steyn still sits at the top with 899 points. 109 points away from him is the pace spearhead of England attack James Anderson. Following him is South African paceman Morne Morkel. After having a disappointing game, Graham Swan has slipped to number 4. Zahir Khan is at number 5 with 728 points. Tailgating him is another left-arm paceman Mitchell Johnson with 727 points. Having a dream series against India, it's England's Stuart Broad who is at number 7. Completing the top 10 in the Reliance ICC Player Rankings for bowlers are India's Ishant Sharma, Bangladesh's Shakib Al Hasan and England's Chris Tremlett. Now that we know all that has happened this week in the cricketing world, it's time to say goodbye. But before we leave, just a few reminders. The LG ICC Awards are happening in London on the 12th of September, and cricket fans will get the opportunity to vote for the LG People's Choice Awards. Fans can do so by logging on to www.lgpeopleschoice.com before 25th August and can vote for their favourite player. The nominees are Hashim Amla, Mahinder Singh Dhoni, Chris Gale, Kumar Sankara and Jonathan Trott. While you are on the internet, you can also get all the happenings in the ICC cricket world by logging on to www.icc-cricket.yahoo.net. Also, you can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/cricketICC, and for the people who like tweeting, @cricketICC is our Twitter handle. Hope you like this edition of the ICC Cricket World. Until next time, it's goodbye from all of us.